Oh boy, welcome back, old whatever you are. Can't believe it's been over 4 years since I talked about Sonic the Hedgehog, and to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really in the market to talk about this series anytime soon, but since it's its anniversary, I feel it's necessary. I mean, I love the original trilogy. Sonic 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and while I don't have that much love for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it still has a lot of value to me. But that's about all I can say. Sonic 1 is a bit slow, CD has some wonky level design, time travel be damned. Knuckles Chaotix is only fun if you're breaking it with Charmy, and Spinball, well, Spinball just sucks. Once we get to 3D though, I have some more mixed feelings. Sonic 3D Blast was just a nothing answer to Donkey Kong Country. The music was solid though. Sonic R was a fairly mediocre racing game on the Saturn and PC that had less content than Super Mario Kart before it. The music was solid though. Sonic the Fighters was a mediocre fighting game for the arcades with, admittedly, pretty charming animation. The music was freaking banging though. To be fair, none of this was supposed to be the big next step for Sonic. Okay, 3D Blast maybe. The Saturn really hurt Sonic's true introduction to 3D proper, and while there was a game in development, Sonic Extreme, I hate that name a lot, it was in development hell and got cancelled thanks to regional and company disputes. However, there was one game on the Saturn that allowed Sonic to show some potential in 3D. This is Sonic Jam, a game that had so much trouble getting to run. Damn you, action replay that won't work on a Japanese Saturn I bought alongside you! Oh well, emulation it is. It's just a compilation of 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, and I don't know if it's the emulation, but damn, this slowdown hurts, and oh lord. I did not bother with Sonic 3 and Knuckles. If I can't deal with Sonic 2 in this state, 3K is going to be just as awful. But that's not what I want to talk about. This collection also has a mode called Sonic World. And first off, this is running smooth as butter. What were the classic games excuse? But if it had to be one, I'm glad it's the original mode. For what it is, it's just a tech demo. One giant world filled with multiple buildings, containing music, concept art, character bios, and just phenomenal artwork. This piece just gets me. What kind of job does Sonic even have? I'm guessing a train ticketer. A 65-foot-long Sonic balloon was the first and only video game character in the parade's history. The only way that statement wouldn't age would if they added, "to be wrecked by a streetlight and injured 2 people. Where was that piece of history, Sega? 2 original high-quality films were made for the Japanese market.
That means Robotropolis is just on the other side of those mountains! Then let's go!
Sure, let's go with that. The main attraction, though, is the missions you can play through. Like attacking Tails, who's just been flying around the sandbox. And popping the balloon. I said popping the... Okay, there, popping the balloons, damn it. I only played this mode for 40 minutes, but it felt like hours. I was having a great time with this. If there was a game that was structured like this, I'd be really happy about that. Of course, the mission structure wouldn't be the main focus, and the sandbox is fun, but having standard levels in 3D would just be more preferable. I think the Sonic Jam got a little crusty. And that's where the big boy comes in. With the Saturn being a big disappointment for Sega, through fault of their own, they had to make sure the next console had a breakout introduction. The Dreamcast was released in Japan on November 27, 1998, and everywhere else in the second half of 1999, with the Prime Sonic title launching in North America on September 9, 1999. After several attempts and experiments, Sonic has finally pushed himself into a 3D platformer like his rival Mario. But Super Mario 64 was 2 years ahead, and Sonic had a lot of trouble making the transition. Was it too little, too late for Sonic? Or did the years in development help in the game's favor? Not particularly either. Well, it's fair to talk about the story and characters. We follow 6 different characters throughout the story, each with their own perspectives, which isn't much of a strength as we'll get into. Sonic and Tails both deal with Eggman, no surprise there, but this time they have to deal with his new companion, Chaos, a water monster that gets powered up each time he devours a Chaos Emerald, and throughout the story you learn that it has connections to the Echidna clan, which is where Knuckles comes in, as he's been dragged into the mess thanks to Chaos destroying the Master Emerald, causing the Angel Island to crash again onto the side of Station Square. As to be expected, they're the main trio for the story, and everything revolves around Eggman, the Echidna clan, Chaos' connection to them, and collecting the Chaos Emeralds before Eggman can destroy Station Square and build his Robotnik land. And while that's pretty much the whole story, we still have to go through the other half of the playable characters. First, we have Amy Rose, who makes her playable debut, though she doesn't impact much. Her part of the story involves her protecting a bird from one of Eggman's robots, Zero, and later trying to find the bird's missing family, both of which reside inside 2 of Eggman's E100 series robots, E101 Beta And the next playable character, E102 Gamma. Gamma's only mission is to collect a frog who swallowed part of Chaos and a Chaos Emerald that belonged to the last character, Big the Cat, who just wants his friend back. Gamma does get a change of heart after freeing Amy after her capture, freeing his other E100 siblings, though it doesn't lead to much other than a kinda sad moment at the end. All three of them do so little to impact the story that you can seriously take them out and lose almost nothing. Sure, Beg has one of the emeralds, same with the bird hanging around with Amy, but you could place them anywhere, and Gamma only exists to catch Froggy, but again, the emerald is only there for no reason, and the piece of chaos lunges into Froggy for no reason. Big was just shoved into this plot, and I have no idea why. I mean, Big is an alright character, but he has no reason to be here. At least not as a playable character, at least. Well, I guess that's a fair segue to the gameplay. Sonic is all about momentum-based platforming, as usual, with the return of the spin dash and bumpers spread across the levels, and the homing shield from 3D Blast being built into Sonic's moveset, to offset the challenges fast-paced movement can introduce in 3D. To be honest, it's a great moveset to have, and the level design for most of Sonic's levels are built to take advantage of it. Though there are a lot of automated segments, which get kinda boring despite the spectacle. Though my biggest issue is the fact that none of the abilities from 3 and Knuckles return. There's no Insta-Shield, not too sad about that, but there's no elemental shields at all, which were my favorite part of 3 and K. Well, that's not entirely true. You do have the regular shield, as well as this magnetic shield, which is similar to the electric shield, only you can't double jump with it. I mean, I'll take the ring attraction, but it's kinda lame in comparison. But no fire shield to push you forward, and no bubble shield to ground pound or protect yourself from drowning. Though to be fair, water is kinda rare, and whatever water does exist usually kills you instantly. Speaking of the magnetic shield, one ability Sonic will learn is the light speed dash, being able to speed through a trail of rings in an instant. After charging for about an hour, this move is kinda slow despite what the move is freaking called. And although there's a bracelet to speed it up, it's still not as quick as I'd want it to. I'd rather it just be instant. Tails is roughly the same as Sonic, with the addition to his ability to fly. Though instead of mashing the button, you need to hold it, which took a lot of getting used to. And I actually died a few times because of it. He also has this tail swipe. The levels are also slightly different, as every level acts as a race against another character. It's fun, but I think the levels should have been identical in layout to Sonic's to make the levels more fulfilling, rather than discouraging exploration and speeding through to the end. Also, am I the only person that thinks Sand Hill was a complete disappointment? I forgot it was even a thing from my first playthrough, either that or I didn't play the stage at all. I think it would have been nice to have this as an actual stage, give Tails an exclusive level to himself. You know, with Tails sharing every level with Sonic, aside from Speed Highway, technically. I feel like both of them should have shared the same story. Sure, they get separated at the halfway point, but you can go back and forth if you need to. Also, make Sand Hill and Speed Highway exclusive to Tails. I say that about Speed Highway because in Sonic's story, Speed Highway felt like a filler level for Sonic. It was literally a sidestep from the story, and it's a perfect end for Tails' story, so it just makes sense to me. And the daytime portion would be filled up for Knuckles, so both bases are covered. Plus, Sonic has 9 other levels, so it wouldn't be much of a sacrifice for the blue pincushion. Going back to Knuckles, his stages are a lot more about exploration and collecting the broken pieces of the Master Emerald. They're a lot shorter and much more confined, very similar to the Sonic World demo, just with the gliding, climbing, and the new Emerald radar to help with the search. Not much I can say here, they're pretty fun. They don't overstay their welcome, and finding the emeralds isn't much of a hassle to find. I do have to question though, why the hell are the emerald shards in Casinopolis and the Lost World ruins when they're indoors? Even more confusing, why was there one inside the Sonic statue? Knuckle does get the ability to dig later on, if you want to get some rings, or if applicable, find emerald pieces. That never happened on this playthrough. The emerald pieces are always randomized, so the seed I was given just made these completely useless. He also has yellow punching gloves, but as you can see, I've never bothered. I kinda just wish the upgrades were either available at the get-go, or given at the end of a stage, since finding them tends to be more of a waste of time rather than an exciting find. Especially when it comes to required mechanics like the light speed dash or the ability to dig. Amy, she is by far the biggest disappointment. Amy is practically the complete opposite of Sonic in terms of mobility. She can't spin dash, homing attack, roll into a ball while jumping, She's the second slowest character in the game, and her only form of defense is her short-range hammer attack. She can do a super jump if she uses the hammer attack while running, but it's not only cumbersome to pull off, it's just pointless. As painful as she is, she only has 3 levels, and none of them are particularly annoying. And the final fight with Zero is pretty cathartic. Now off to Gamma, their gameplay revolves around the shoot 'em up style, and the more targets you take out, the more time you get, as the clock this time becomes a timer. Why? I don't know, maybe it's battery life. I literally had the least to say with this. The stages are mindless, the bosses are mindless, except Beta, and really, Gamma in general is just there. I have nothing to say past that, and I feel the same with Big as well. It's fishing. Nothing more, nothing less. You can break your line and lose a life, because that makes sense for a fisherman. No net either, like that's one of the things you think of for a fisherman. That and bait, this hook is more raw than... you get the point. I expect this to be a side mode, not a story required for the final story. At least give Big some kind of exploration and combat options. Speed him up as wet... Holy mother... Okay, that cat can climb. And that's not even it when it comes to the gameplay styles. You have the tornado missions for both Sonic and Tails, which you need to play through 4 whole times with. There's the snowboarding sections for Ice Cap and Sand Hill. There's the kart racing in Twinkle Park, which you only need to play for emblem hunting. Same with the Chow Garden, which is just Tamagotchi with competitions. I didn't really bother with them. Why the hell do we need all these stories? If it's all for perspective, I gotta tell you, some of them are just boring at points. Big especially. And even some cutscenes that share characters have different dialogue for some reason. The Sonic and Tails vs. Knuckles cutscenes all had different dialogue, and it bugs the shit out of me. And considering the voice acting is... chaos! Interesting, to say the least, doesn't really make it any better. Yeah, this was the first time Sonic got some voice acting, CD aside. And it's alright. Ryan Drummond as Sonic, Dean Bristow as Eggman, and John St. John as Big... Wait. Would make the fishing a lot easier. Speaking of the sound, though... Oh damn, we need to talk about the soundtrack. This is my favorite soundtrack in the franchise. Period. From the opening song, Open Your Heart, to the energy of Emerald Coast, to the intensity of the Perfect Chaos Pinch Mode, to the Chow Garden theme, there's not a single bad track in this entire collection. Every character even got a theme to themselves. My favorites being Sonic's It Doesn't Matter, Knuckles' Unknown to Me, Big's Living in Paradise, and Gamma's theme that doesn't have a name because it's the only one alongside Eggman with no lyrics. I could go point by point with this soundtrack, but I'd be here for a while. All I'll say is find a playlist and enjoy the entire thing. Now you may be wondering why I'm talking about the Steam version and not the Dreamcast version. To be perfectly honest, I wanted to talk about this version, but thanks to the Elgato being a little bitch and not recording the Dreamcast, the Saturn, and a few other consoles, I pretty much had to stick with the Steam version, and if I have to tell you to pick one version, yeah, stick with the Dreamcast. The Steam version is pretty unstable compared to the Dreamcast version. I even ran into a couple of glitches that I found on my first playthrough, one with Sonic and one with Tails. I had to wonder if that was even a glitch in the first place if I ran into it so many times. But I also clipped through these railings twice, I slipped into this spot twice as well, and the homing attack failed in this part right here. That's a playthrough I'm going to remember. At the end of the day though, Sonic Adventure is a mixed bag. I like the Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles stories, while Amy, Gamma, and Big felt like total filler. It didn't help the fact that they were all separated into different stories. It'd be better if the entire game was just focused on the entire story, bouncing between each character when applicable. Like, start with Gamma on the final egg to introduce Eggman proper, though maybe call it something else like Training Egg or something. Then it follows up with Sonic in the fight with Chaos Zero. The stages that Sonic shares with Tails and Amy should give the option to play as one or the other. Of course, make Amy a lot more fun to control. This is not it. I got an entire thing mapped up right here, and how I'd like to restructure the whole thing. Maybe I'll make a side video to go in detail though. Also, get the Steam port and use the better SADX mod. I'd say get the Dreamcast version outright, but I'm pretty sure you don't have a Dreamcast. Anyway, Sonic Adventure was a smash hit on the Dreamcast. Helped that the console was a hit in general with the phenomenal launch. The game sold enough to get a sequel, which it got, at the end of the Dreamcast's life cycle. Despite a good launch, the console crashed hard thanks to the PS2 and the fact that it was easy to pirate. But despite that, Sonic Adventure 2 was released on the last year on the Dreamcast. But since they stopped making consoles, they were able to make a port for the GameCube to recoup their sales. I'd say putting it on PS2 and Xbox would have made the game sell better, but to each their own. It was kind of crazy to see a Sonic game on a Nintendo console for the first time, and I'm pretty sure the Nintendo kids had their laughs at the Sega kids, while the Sega kids laughed at the fact that they were enjoying a Sonic game. Now, like Sonic Adventure, I'm going to be playing Sonic Adventure 2 on Steam as well, mostly because the Dreamcast and GameCube versions are a little pricey. Not saying that this was any cheaper, but it was affordable at the very least. But compared to Sonic Adventure, it really wasn't all that glitchy, so I don't think my opinions would change all that much. The story is a lot more simple this time, since you're focusing on 2 stories instead of 6, each story focusing on 3 characters each. Starting with the hero story, Sonic is unknowingly taken in by the military unit Gun, with Sonic escaping from the helicopter using a piece of it to fall down to the city below. He later finds another hedgehog, who Sonic suspects is framing him for whatever he did. The hedgehog, calling himself Shadow, uses the Chaos Emerald he stole from a nearby bank to teleport away, leaving Sonic to be captured once again. In the Dark Story, an event before Sonic is captured, Eggman is raiding Prison Island to steal a project his grandfather was creating 50 years ago on the space colony Ark. He finds the capsule that happens to contain Shadow, and he tells Eggman that he can grant him one wish if he brings the Chaos Emeralds to him aboard the Ark. What is he, a frickin' genie? Speaking of the Emeralds, Knuckles and another new face, Rouge, are fighting for the Master Emerald, shoehorning the poor Echidna into the plot. And Eggman steals the Emerald right in front of them, with Knuckles reacting by destroying it. Knuckles then explains to Rouge, after strangling him for a bit, she's shaking him pretty violently there, that he can restore the Emerald after collecting the shattered pieces, prompting both to go searching. Eggman then goes back to the base in the desert, watching a news flash about Shadow stealing one of the Emeralds, and I have to be blunt here, how do people confuse both Sonic and Shadow? I've been told plenty of theories about how the government is telling bystanders that Shadow is Sonic, but seriously? These two look nothing alike other than the fact that they're both hedgehogs. We have 2 hedgehogs already, you wouldn't think that there aren't any other hedgehogs in the world? The creators say that the human world and the Mobian world are 2 different worlds and that Sonic and company were transported to the human world? If that were the case, then explain the Echidna temples from the last game. I find it far-fetched that Shadow wouldn't be just an unknown entity to the public, and I find it hard to believe that people are this stupid to confuse the two. Okay, fair point. Well, it works anyway. Eggman and Shadow confuse the public, Sonic is arrested, and they take the emerald they stole to the Ark, with Shadow explaining to Eggman about the Eclipse Cannon, a laser that can destroy an entire planet. Why Gerald was creating this thing is a total blank to me. Like, what exactly pushed him to create this? Was it made to scare off the nation's enemies? Was it made to destroy rogue meteors? Was it made to eliminate the clan? What was this thing for? Well, it's certainly convenient for Eggman. But unfortunately for them, a spy is overhearing their conversation, talking about how getting the emeralds will be a challenge, but she's willing to help out. But she'll need the radar to find the emeralds on Prison Island, leading to plenty of events, including both Sonic and Shadow meeting up again with this infamous conversation.
Ha! You're not even good enough to be my words.
Oh, the editing in these cutscenes is impeccable. Well, everyone escapes, Rouge and Shadow get the emeralds, and the island explodes thanks to the bombs planted by the villains. Sonic, Tails, Amy, and the newly joined Knuckles learn about Eggman's whereabouts on the Ark. So I understand the teleportation device takes Eggman to anywhere he wants. So why the hell does he have a space shuttle in the pyramid? I doubt it's for assurance because he'd be able to build the device right away if it ever got broken. Plus, the shuttle has so little utility compared to the teleporters, so it's literally useless to him. It would make a lot more sense for them to go to Metal Harbor and steal a rocket there, or, and this might sound crazy, but why don't Sonic and company just use the teleporter? We can see that it can definitely get hacked in, since we see Rouge doing it earlier in the Dark Story, and I highly doubt it's that hidden. It's the Eggman we're talking about. Honestly, the only reason why the rocket is here is for Knuckles to lose the Master Emerald pieces, which is honestly kind of silly. Knuckles and Rouge were going to fight anyway and build the Master Emerald, so yeah, it's just kind of a dumb addition. Oh, but that's just the beginning. Once they get into the space colony alive, Tails reveals the fake emerald to destroy the Eclipse Cannon from the inside. It has the same wavelength and properties as a real emerald, but it's not as powerful, and it's made to reverse the effects of the cannon. Keep that in mind. Well, Eggman knew about the emerald thanks to the radar, but there was also another emerald Tails got from the last game. There was literally no reason to have the real emerald since they need the fake emerald to destroy the Eclipse Cannon. Oh well, I guess we do need a climax. Well, once Sonic gets into the control room, Tails calls him to get to the power supply before Eggman straight up kills Amy. Would you look at that? Taking the damsel was a terrible idea. Eggman tells Sonic to put the emerald into the center of the room, but of course it was a trap and Tails does something stupid while Sonic is about to get killed.
So, how did you know it wasn't the real one?
Tails!
Because you just told me, Fox Boy.
The same wavelength and properties. Can I do this?
Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna cry foul here. First off, Sonic has never attempted this technique. He's only seen Shadow do this once, and even then, it was at the beginning of the adventure. Second, Tails made the emeralds with the same properties, but it's weaker overall, so even if he did perform Chaos Control, there was probably a chance it wouldn't even reach the Arc. Third, I don't really care how Shadow learned it, though it would have been nice to see a flashback or something, but I just can't believe that Sonic would just randomly figure out the ability to Chaos Control just through a vague look roughly 36 hours earlier with a fake-ass emerald and not in the middle of panic. The damn emerald is a total Deus Machina and it pisses me off. The story would be much better off if the fake emerald was just removed. Just have Tails meet up with Eggman, Sonic go over to the control room and fight with Shadow, have Tails and Eggman fight until Tails loses the emerald mid-fight, and when he doesn't notice, Eggman feints defeat. Eggman incapacitates Tails and takes the emerald, and plants it in while Sonic and Shadow fight out in space. No fake emerald, none of this chaos control bullshit, and the final story plays out as normal. After entering the last emerald, a video of Gerald Robotnik immediately plays, talking about his disgust over Gunn for murdering his granddaughter Maria, and has deployed the Ark to crash into the Earth for revenge. Somehow? As far as I'm concerned, Maria died after Gerald is taken in, so he wouldn't have been able to configure the Ark to do so. Plus, if he was recorded saying this by Gunn, they would want to shut it down. Oh wait, they did, never mind. Also, I don't know, doesn't he have, let me think, a f***ing laser that can destroy the entire planet? I'm just saying the giant death laser would probably be a lot more effective than a body slam from the space colony that would only do a little bit of damage onto the planet itself. Seriously, hire an Emerald Hunter and have them activate the laser. It's that frickin' simple. Okay, whatever. Everyone has to work together to end the collision. Knuckles has to use the Master Emerald that just shrunk in size somehow and stop the Chaos Emeralds from controlling the Ark. Everyone does their job to access the cannon core, while Amy finds Shadow and tells him to help out. With her triggering a memory of his late friend, finally understanding her true desire to help mankind, he quickly goes to the core to set things right. Once Knuckles and Sonic gets to a makeshift Emerald Shrine, a giant lizard suddenly appears. Now, Rouge's research did find this creature was the original Project Shadow, and considering the artificial chaos and the shrine, it is heavily implied that the mural from Sonic Adventure was an influence on the designs on both the Bio-Lizard and Shadow the Hedgehog. Though I have to ask, why isn't the Bio-Lizard just perfect chaos? Surely Gerald knew how to recreate it. Or maybe he had a pet lizard of some kind and made it as the basis for a perfect chaos clone. Sure, I'll accept that canon. By the way, I really don't like this fight. Dodging the shadow balls and homing attacking the eggs is fine, but the core of its life support is kinda shoddy and the eggs can just snipe you out of nowhere. Well, the Bio-Lizard escapes and attaches itself to the Ark, causing both Sonic and Shadow to go super with the emeralds that somehow appear. Maybe they teleported to the Master Emerald and... Wow, this thing is kind of a joke. Like, I got a close call once, but that's it. This thing was far more pathetic than Perfect Chaos. You could call this thing an imperfect chaos. Well, speaking of death though, Sonic and Shadow quickly try and stop the Ark and use Chaos Control to bring it back to its orbit. Now this should have been where Sonic learned Chaos Control by Shadow. It'd been pointless, but at least it had some impact. And apparently Shadow just dies. How much immunity do you have, you Azure asshole? And it kinda ends on a melancholy note. Sonic gives Rouge Shadow's rings. Eggman reminisces about his grandfather to Tails, almost implying that he's okay with doing more good for the world. Rouge tells Knuckles that she'll quit her life of gem hunting and implying that she wants to hook up with Knuckles. But Knuckles is just oblivious to the idea. Tell him how you feel, Rouge. Men can't understand implications. It almost feels like a conclusion to the Sonic franchise, almost. But of course it was in the end. Not even close. But it's not a bad story on its own. It's got some annoying bits, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying it. Honestly, I'd say it's the best part of the entire game, but let's talk about the rest before I get ahead of myself. Like I said before, you get to play as 3 characters in each campaign. You have the action stages with Sonic and Shadow, treasure hunting with Knuckles and Rouge, and mech shooting with Tails and Eggman. The action stages are roughly similar to Adventure. Both Sonic and Shadow have the spin dash, the homing attack. They still need to learn the lightspeed dash through a power-up, but not only are they easy to get, you can actually use it right away, and it actually goes at a fast pace as the name suggests. New to the game is the somersault, which is more or less a quick spin dash to slide under tight spaces. And Sonic, and only Sonic, can learn the bounce, similar to the bubble shield in Sonic 3. It won't stop you from drowning, like that's an issue, but it can give you some height and another way to take out some military bots. Lastly, you have rail grinding, since the game was sponsored by Soap Shoes at the time, something that nobody actually gives a shit about anymore. Brilliant marketing there. I don't really care much about this, it's just another way to get around. Apparently there's a balancing mechanic to it, but I don't know, every time I tried it, it makes me lose speed rather than gain, so I just leave it alone. It gives me results either way. Now, while the acrobatics are perfectly fine, I think the level design can be a bit better. Unlike the previous games, the levels are a lot more linear. And while it's not an issue on the offset, what made Sonic games exciting was the multiple ways to get through the goal. It created a lot of replay value, and while Adventure 2 has a new ranking and mission system to recreate that replay value, it doesn't leave much room for experimentation and exploration. And even some of the gimmicks can be less than desirable, like the slow hourglass timers and screw keys in Pyramid Cave, and the anti-gravity and crazy gadgets. Seriously, this kinda made me sick. Oh, the endings of Metal Harbor and Green Forest can kiss my ass too. The rocket part in Metal Harbor tended to give me a lot of trouble, stupid guardrails. And the crumbling floor in Green Forest hid this one spring to bring me to this spring, and I thought it'd be faster to homing attack that one, but silly me, that's not how this game works. Those didn't ruin either stage, but it certainly made them quite annoying, especially when I was so close to an A rank. At least City Escape is a fine starting level with an absolutely fantastic track. And Final Rush was the only time where the game went a little non-linear. On Shadow's part, they fared a bit better. White Jungle was probably the weakest stage, mostly considering the spin dash is pretty ass in this game and I failed the shuttle loop thanks to it. But the rest isn't too bad. In fact, Skyrail was another non-linear level, which was actually kinda nice. Though the gold ring was slightly raised for some reason, destroying my rank, that was kinda deceptive. Though Shadow doesn't get as many as Sonic, being only 2 less than the blue blur. In fact, Shadow doesn't really get as much presence in the game in general. He's just kind of another partner for Eggman until the end of the game. And he doesn't even get as much attention as Rouge, who gets 4 stages and a driving stage, which is just fine. The only time Shadow was even remotely important when he was explaining the Eclipse canon, and of course, at the end. Not really that interesting, is he? But speaking of Rouge, the treasure hunting stages are similar to Adventure as well, but with 2 big differences that make it much worse. Let's get this out of the way. You can only track 1 piece at a time. Practically, this makes no sense, unless Knuckles got some kind of brain damage prior to this game. Well, actually, Rouge did shake him pretty violently. Rouge herself ultimately has no excuse. My guess is that the Knuckles stages lasted too short in the first game, so they wanted to lengthen the stages by arbitrarily locking all but one of the pieces. Doesn't stop you from finding the other pieces, and occasionally just find them laying around the stage and completely missing them. That's irritating enough, but most of the stages are either big or maze-like, making finding the pieces or whatever you need to take way longer than necessary. Or if you're extremely unlucky, find the location, but the location is buried in a super picky location and the debris from previous digging spots block your way because they decided to have collision for some reason. Both of the tomb levels and the space levels were absolutely intrusive. None of these levels were remotely fun, though not all of them were bad. Each of their first levels were fine enough, and as much as I was about to complain about Egg Quarter, the 5-minute level that should have been 15 minutes, well, it actually wasn't that horrible. I even got an A rank. But as annoying as they are, at least the music for both is fantastic. With Knuckles getting these corny yet hilarious rap songs, and Rouge getting this energetic jazz music, and I'm always a sucker for jazz. Hush. And as frustrating as these levels were, they don't compare to the Tails mech stages. I was dreading these ever since my last brief playthrough several years ago, and yep, these are as bad as I remember. Present lane aside, every level has that one element that ruins the experience. The overabundance of quicksand and hidden base, the shallow doors you can lock onto for some reason in Eternal Engine, and Mission Street has this strict platforming and these boxes that look like it'd hold a secret, but it leads to your death instead. Gee, aren't I a dipshit? Not a single Tails level feels fun by any stretch, besides maybe Prison Lane, but they tend to also feel empty or downright unfinished. Took me a few minutes to realize I wasn't soft locked in this part of Hidden Base, since I didn't think I was able to go back. Spoiler alert, I could. There was speculation that Tails wasn't going to be in the game at all, thanks to interviews with Yuji Naka, and the fact that Tails is in his tornado as a mech gives it some kind of validity. To be honest, I didn't mind the fact that Tails was in the mech, it's just the level design doesn't seem to complement the control. But hey, they did give Tails the ability to walk out of the mech in the Chow Garden, which again is just okay. I threw a Chow egg at the wall and now the Chow is a little demon. I fed him lots of skunks. Moving over to Eggman, once I finished the hero story, I knew Eggman was going to start it off, and I was horrified to say the least. But that anxiety was quickly quelled though. Iron Gate was a much more exciting version of Prison Lane, and the levels actually get better over time. Not only does the level design feel a lot more fleshed out, keeping the bullshit to a minimum, the carnage is absolutely cathartic. Nothing feels better than holding the lock-on button and though the beeping does get ear-grating after a while. Actually, one of my favorite levels is not only an Eggman level, but it's the final one, Cosmic Wall. The carnage is immense, plus the jet booster you get from the last stage allows you to rise upward thanks to the low gravity. Kinda wish the upgrade did that for both Tails and Eggman, frankly, but what can you do? As for a remake. And it's the only piece of music in the next stages I can actually remember, though I'm not sure why that is exactly. I was quite surprised at how great I thought the Dark Side levels were, and apparently I'm alone on that. I made a Twitter poll after finishing the Dark story, and it was absolutely unanimous. I can only imagine that people just remember the hero story more, and fair dues if so. Or maybe you guys are so sadistic that you love going through Death Chamber trying to find that one emerald without drowning, but you got to swim through the caverns without any goddamn bubbles to fill your air. And why did the bubbles push you down? It's what made Knuckles' section in the final story suck. I don't know, looking through all the stages, I liked 4 Sonic stages, 1 Tails stage, and 1 Knuckles stage, 6 out of 16 in total, compared to at least 3 of Shadow stages, 2 of Regis stages, and all 5 of Eggman stages, meaning I liked 10 out of the 14 stages available. Adding on to that, most of the bosses were much better than Adventure, aside from the character fights. They're still kinda pathetic. The gunfights were pretty solid, and both of the Egg Golem fights were fun. Wow, there was only 1 fight with an Eggman robot. That's kind of crazy. One fight I don't get, though, is King Boom Boo. Not only did it come out of nowhere, the boss was followed up with the Egg Golem, which made it also unnecessary. Also, the boss kind of sucks. Chasing this thing is a freaking nightmare. Why not have Knuckles fight the Egg Golem instead if they needed to give him a boss? Sonic already had the Bigfoot and the final fights. It would have also made more sense than having random platforms on the back. I don't know. And before anyone say it, Sonic vs. Shadow at the end isn't very fun either. The AI is way too defensive and it takes way too long as a result. And with all that said, Sonic Adventure 2 is the mixiest of mixed bags. Half of the stages are fun, half of the soundtrack is fun to listen to, including the vocal tracks, with me only enjoying Flying the Freedom, Eggman, and It Doesn't Matter, the latter two being some of my favorite songs in the franchise. The game looks both amazing for Dreamcast and also really ugly with the human characters, Shadow's dusty texture, and some characters like Amy looking just way too flat texture-wise. And the story was entertaining despite some frustrating elements and a few questions not being answered. But hey, it's still beloved by plenty of Sega kids, and it was the first Sonic game outside of a Sega system, giving playing a Nintendo kids some nostalgia as well. And of course people don't shut up about the Chow Garden in the battle mode, which was all unlocked on the start in the battle version. I personally never played it, and I probably never will. Let's freaking move on. I'm tired of talking about this game. Now, these 2 games are where I started with the franchise. You can't really see them because the covers are kind of gone. But I actually started with Sonic Advance 3, which is considered the worst of the trilogy. I wonder if that's an omen. But while I played those as a kid, I gotta start with the one I haven't played until this very video. One thing to note, I suppose, is the new sprites. I've known these sprites since 2004, but over time I feel like I like them less. One of the reasons may be my memories of doing these awful sprite videos back when I started in 2011. Don't bother, the channel doesn't exist anymore. Though I suppose the other reason is... Well, the sprites look pretty weird. Sonic's eyes look way too squished. I don't like the enlarged eyes for Sonic and Knuckles when they get hit. Not sure how to feel about the death frames, and a lot of the in-between frames look pretty ugly, though that's pretty nitpicky, I'm aware. I mean, they're fine overall, but once I discovered these classic sprites, these just feel a little flat overall. And I gotta say, the sound is as good as the sprites themselves. The music isn't bad, but it's not as memorable compared to the previous games, though I do love me some Secret Base. But for the game itself, for most people, this game is considered the unofficial Sonic 4, before we got the official Sonic 4. And I can see where they're coming from. The controls are a bit stiff compared to the classics, though they're fairly fine. The level design is a bit basic, even looking at the level maps, I'll explain why I did it a bit. Though I have to ask, what is with the springs? The collision is so precise, even more so than the first game. Just, how can you make it like this? But at least the levels are fun to go through, and the characters you play with are as fun as they were in the classics. Every character has their original abilities, along with Tails getting his tail swipe from Sonic Adventure, and the Insta Shield returning for Sonic. Though I feel like it's a lot better here, definitely used it more than Sonic 3. But there are some omissions, like the elemental shields being completely absent. The original shield is here, and I guess we have the magnetic shield from Adventure, which I would heavily prefer the superior electric shield from Sonic 3, but whatever. The special rings also don't return, which were the best way to get to special stages, and there's no bonus stages when you hit a checkpoint. Those were amazing additions, they came back in Mania, that's how perfect they were. Instead, so I had the hardest time finding the new special springs that take you to the new special stages. And there's a reason for that. There is only one spring in the entire zone. Not one per act, which would have been bad enough. One per zone. And you can only collect one emerald per zone. So if you have a hard time getting to the spring, you might as well give up. And yeah, once I discovered that from the level maps I looked up, I just did one for the footage and stopped there. But Jayson, don't you want to play as Super Sonic? First off, no. As I should reiterate from my video on the classic trilogy, I don't really care for Super Sonic, especially when every special stage from those games were not very fun for me. And second, even if I did, I wouldn't even unlock Super Sonic at all. It's only for the final boss. So that removes all the reason to get the emeralds in the first place, in my opinion. Also, the special stages were ass. The illusion of 3D just ruins a cool idea for me. I go through the rings, I'm apparently off entirely, and I fail the stage. And this is the first stage. Oh, and that's not all, friends, because as much as I enjoy this game, once we get to the Egg Rocket, the game goes from a well-designed game to a game that wants to drain your blood and laugh. Act 2 especially. Why? That. I have no idea what the last stage is. This stage burned me so much that I just don't care anymore. The guy that had this copy before me seemed to share my opinions because even they couldn't get past the damn stage. Amy being the exception. I wonder why that... Oh man, this is bad. Why did they use her adventure moveset? This is so clunky. Why did they expect you to go through the entire game like this? Okay, I'm done. It's time to move on. I'm getting sick of this. I remember the day when I saw a copy of Sonic Advance 2 at a GameStop in my own hometown. Despite having Sonic Advance 3 and seeing plenty of franchises on the shelf that I was very familiar with and some that I should have gotten into early on, I was an obsessive Sonic fan at that point, so I told Mario, Pokemon, Kirby, and Final Fantasy to piss off. I think a copy of Puyo Pop was there as well, but I didn't know the name at the time. Damn it, Kirby. Well, Advance 2 was the game I played a ton on my GBA, more than Advance 3 actually. I just adored the speed here, accompanied with the flashy Astro images. I discovered the cool tricks you can perform after flying off a spring, rail, or ramp. There were these special rings that let you into the special stage, which felt a lot more accessible than what Advance 3 did, but we'll get there later. And damn, I love this soundtrack. It's still in my top 5. Hot Crater, Music Plant, Ice Paradise, Sky Canyon, etc. This music is frickin' boppin', man. Oh, and there was the tiny Chow Garden I played to level 99. And then hindsight kicked in and I realized I was just watching a Chow play a trumpet over and over again. Was I really that bored as a kid? Oh, right, what does the game have to offer otherwise? Well, in addition to the 4 returning characters from the first game, though Amy is only unlocked by getting every emerald with every character. Yeah, no, screw that. We are also introduced to Cream the Rabbit and her friend Cheese the Chow. That's cute. Cream is here to help her mother Vanilla from the clutches of Eggman. Though why he needs Vanilla at all, I'm not sure and I hope to never know. But Cream will do whatever it takes to get her back, even if it involves the Eggman bloody and bruised. Yeah, Cream is kind of broken in this game, especially on the boss side. You can beat every boss in 20 seconds or less, even the final boss, just look at this. Cream can also fly just like Tails, and I'm not sure if she can tire out faster or if she flies higher, but the fact that she can fly at all is crazy as is. And everyone feels better than ever from the first game, not only because the acceleration and movement is a lot more loose, but the level design feels a lot more extensive, and also the collision feels better too. Well, more so the springs. Seriously, that was just weird. Amy can actually act as a traditional character this time, which is how she should have acted in the first place, no exceptions. And everyone can do tricks with the R button, as I mentioned earlier, and you can do special attacks while in boost mode. This is actually the first time to implement the boost, though here you need to build up the speed rather than hitting a button in later games, which personally I kind of prefer, but we'll get to that when we get to those games. Well, with everything I said, it sounds like an improvement over the first game. And yeah, it is. But it has its shortcomings as well, and by shortcomings, yep, we gotta talk about the Chaos Emeralds. Like I mentioned earlier, you need to get these special rings. There are 7 in total in each act, which is a lot more comfortable than, well, yeah. But while you won't need to find them in a specific act, you will need to find the right route to get them all, which strips the level design a bit thanks to it. And some of the rings can be a pain in the butt. I don't know how I got all the emeralds as a kid, let alone with every character. Ugh. I must have found some good routes, and I definitely remember using the internet for this. One of the first times I did so for a game, and this was still when we had dial-up. Ugh, the memories. I mean, getting the emeralds with anyone other than Sonic is kind of pointless. Again, you only need them for the true final boss, and it's a good one despite getting stuck on it as a kid. The cutscenes before and after the fight were pretty powerful too, but getting to it is just... it's painful. If Dips put a few spare rings throughout the stages, it would have been much easier to deal with, maybe 10 to 12 being the sweet spot. I don't know, but hey, at least the special stages were a piece of cake to deal with. Why is Zero here? The game really likes bottomless pits too, and this would be Dimp's moniker for most of the games. Especially with Sonic Advance 3, oh boy. But before we get to that, I want to say I love Sonic Advance 2. Out of all the games I'm talking about for this video, it's definitely my favorite. The Chaos Emeralds aside, it's just a phenomenal game. Every character is fun to play with, the level design is great, just everything about it is wonderful. Except for the Chaos Emeralds, of course. But now on to Sonic Advance 3, the game that actually got me into the series in the first place. I remember the first time I saw this game as well. I was at a sleepover with my best friend at the time, and he showed me his Game Boy Advance alongside Sonic Advance 3, and I was mesmerized. Sonic and company were so cool, the scenery was awe-inspiring, the music was kicking ass, and there was voice acting in a Game Boy game. As a kid only familiar with the Game Boy Color at the time, this blew my mind, and I stayed up and played it with the nightlight in the corner, and it was magical. Until the mom came in to see if we were asleep. But the real question is it as good as I remember? So first off, let me get the music out of the way. It's great. I love Sunset Hill, best remix until Sonic Mania punched me in the face with both of its acts. Route 99 is fun and energetic, Toy Kingdom has a chaotic cheeriness to it, Chaos Angel fits the disturbing ruins of the corrupted Angel Island, and the excellent boss music. The energy and intensity is on point, one of my favorite boss pieces. And the new team mechanic was a lot of fun too, and this was the thing that grabbed me alongside the locales and music. You get to start with Sonic and Tails obviously, and it's the most basic. The only thing to note is that you can get some vertical height with Tails or speed up with Sonic using the tag action. But once you get Knuckles, here's my favorite combination. Knuckles tagged with Tails. He can actually double jump even after a climb, breaking the entire level design in half. You can also float on top of water. That's something, I guess. Sonic tagged with Knuckles is cool if you want the Insta Shield. Definitely a perfect choice. And he also has this fiery somersault that's also really useless. Switch the two around though, well, Knuckles can't glide or climb anymore, making him utterly useless, and Tails can only glide instead of fly. But at least it's better than anyone with Amy. Everyone is automatically nerfed if you just have her as the partner, because you can't curl into a ball. Though you can go into one with Sonic if you press the B button. That's a little cumbersome. And I guess Tails does get better flying speed alongside a hammer for defense, as well as Knuckles gaining the ability to dash on walls. Sonic Favorite Cream is fine, you get the Fire Shield ability and unlimited air underwater, and the reverse is perfectly fine as well, though nothing is overly different aside from Cheese just going forward. And Cream with Knuckles has Cheese orbit around Cream as a form of defense. But everything else with Cream, primary or tagged, must have been a punishment for being so good in the last game, poor girl. This is both Sonic Advance 3's biggest strength and its biggest weakness. The tag team mechanic is a great idea, but it all depends on what tag combination you use. Some are just superior to the rest, while others are pathetically worthless. Some characters gain actions, while some just lose their signature abilities altogether. Here's a little tier list I made up. Your playthrough will be a smooth experience. Though I should also mention the level design. Pits up the wazoo in many of these stages, and each level has at least one piece of level design. One thing I definitely remember from my first playthrough were the spike traps here and here, as well as this crushing block I always got caught on. If it weren't for the music in the city setting, I would have gotten angry as a kid. But once you get to Sunset Hill, it gets a bit better, though Ocean Base does have its fair share of cruelty. Screw these sharks, they can go extinct. But when Cybertruck and Chaos Angel hit, it gets bad again. Not Advance 1 bad in my opinion, but the pits and traps are abundant, and they also have plenty of waiting periods that will kill you if you don't act fast, and I mean fast, damn it! That's Sonic Advance 3 though. Half the game is a fun experience, and the other half can... Now the real question is, how do you get the... Chow? Oh, I guess the Chow Garden expanded. Okay, here's how the emeralds work this time. You got to collect 10 Chow in a stage. Some of them are in the 3 acts. Oh yeah, there are 3 acts this time instead of 2, because that's exactly what we need, a callback to Sonic 1 of all games. And most of them have 1 in the hub world, because we needed that from Sonic Adventure. You'll only need to collect them once, something I wish the Chaos Ring should have behaved as. And once every one of them was collected, you finally get a chance at the nope. Then you need to go back to an act and find a special key and finish the stage with it, and find the one special spring in the hub world. Aw, did you fail the special stage? Well, numbnuts, you better go back to another level, grab another special key, pass that level, and go back to the spring. Does that sound tedious? That's because it is. On paper, it's not as bad as getting every ring or finding the only spring in a zone, but replaying stages to grind some keys is just irritating. I think just getting a Chow would allow you to go into the stage. And instead of a spring in the hub world, why not get to the special stage after you finish an act, like Advance 2? Or maybe treat the Chow like the special rings from Sonic 3. Oh, and the special stages themselves, it's a better version of Advance 1 stages, but that ain't saying much. These stages can be pretty strict, and the last stage, well, the second phase tends to let you collect double the rings, but the 7th stage made you collect more, even though collecting double was hard enough as is. So I quit like I did in Sonic Advance after 3+ hours. No, seriously, I spent 3+ hours on this one goddamn special stage. So like Sonic Advance 2, I just emulated the game and found a complete save file. I had to emulate Advance 2 just because the cartridge wasn't working anymore, and plug the save file after Sonic's playthrough. But with Sonic Advance 3, it was just a lack of patience, and I wanted to show the ending. Eggman has to work with Sonic to stop his creation Gemerald, that robot you had to fight a few times. I really wish more games did this. It was a fun concept, even if the fight itself was a little too easy. Especially compared to the other bosses, which were pretty creative and fairly challenging. And it seemed to be that Gemerald was a modified version of Emerald, a Gazoid robot from Sonic Battle, a 3D fighting GBA game with RPG elements. All I'm gonna say about the game is that it's kinda decent, if a little boring. I do like the character portraits though, pretty stylish. So finally, we get to what may be the most ambitious game in the series so far, Sonic Heroes. Not only are the original Trilogy returning for the game, alongside Amy, Cream, Rouge, Shadow, Chaotix. So not only did the game consist of a lot of weird additions, but we were playing as 12 characters in total. Well, like I said, you can't say it wasn't ambitious. But it wasn't as bad as it sounds. Like Sonic Advance 3, the game was going to be team-based. Or is Advance 3 more like Sonic Heroes? It doesn't matter. But this time, there were 4 stories focused on 3 characters, each story having a different perspective. You have Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles forming Team Sonic, where they are tasked to stop Eggman from taking over the world in 3 days. Though I guess Knuckles is just letting the Master Emerald tend for itself this time. Maybe it's just for this one adventure. Amy, Cream, and Big form Team Rose, who are on a mission to search for Cheese's sibling, Chocola, as well as Big's friend, Froggy. Well, at least there's no fishing this time. Vector, SBO, and Charmy form Team Chaotix and are trying to get some funds for their failing detective agency. And they get a call from a mysterious figure thanks to a walkie-talkie. And finally, Rouge, Shadow, and newcomer E123 Omega form Team Dark, and they try to find Eggman to both find out Shadow's mysterious return and Omega wanting to take revenge for leaving him in a storage bin. And I have to say, Omega is one of my favorite characters, just for his aesthetic and sarcastic attitude towards everyone, even his teammates.
One less supporter. Now I shall destroy you all.
Rouge also gets this new outfit this time, and I heavily prefer this one over SA2 attire. Now, I only played the 2-player mode for this game when I first played it at an after-school program back in 2008. The junior high school I attended had a game room with a pool table and an Xbox with plenty of games. I only remember 2 of the games though, Sonic Heroes and Bust a Move, which I actually preferred funnily enough. You know, I have to wonder why. One thing to note is the art direction. Compared to Sonic Adventure 2, Heroes is certainly a lot more colorful, with more neon colors and lighting that's a bit more intense. While it may be a complaint for some, I think it works for a Sonic game, thinking that cartoon aesthetic that Sonic and Company can benefit from. The music is pretty solid, no surprise, plus the voice acting and lip syncing are much better in this game, though the various voice clips can either be annoying or repetitive.
Look at all those Eggman robots!
I'll take care of them.
Look at all those Eggman robots!
I'll take care of them.
We're not going there, are we?
Yes, we are.
We're not going there, are we?
Yes, we are.
Just enough to pass. Just enough to pass. Just enough to pass.
Let's get into the game, shall we? So the game gives us a strong introduction with Seaside Hill. The level design is top-notch, lots of solid platforming, multiple pathways to increase replayability, and to encourage exploration. All this complements the new team mechanic. Each of the characters are separated by 3 classes. Speed characters, like Sonic, are obviously the fastest of the group. They have the ability to use the homing attack, create a tornado to remove shields and cling onto poles. They can do the triangle jump that allows them to jump between walls, and they can use the rocket excel... What the hell is this? You know, I would have heavily preferred a spin dash, guys. Now, considering what this franchise is about, you'd think that you'd be using this formation for most of the adventure, right?
No.
Yeah, no, this formation kinda blows. The speed is absolutely ridiculous, and the traction is almost non-existent, causing plenty of deaths just because Sonic slipped on a bar of soap. On the opposite side of the spectrum, you have the flight characters like Tails, which allow their teammates to cling onto their legs and slow them down significantly. There's no way to separate them unless you need to flip 3 faraway switches. But as a consolation, you can throw dummy ring bombs when you're alone as Tails. That's something, right? Outside of flying, this formation can stun flying enemies or completely demolish when fully ranked up. They even outrank the power formation in most ways, but of course, when it comes to the power formation, they are the strongest of the group otherwise. And since the enemies have health bars this time, they are the most important for combat. They also have the ability to rise over fans. I mean, I guess that makes sense for Knuckles, but they really took some liberties with the rest. Big uses a parasol, I guess. Vector uses bubblegum? Omega, I'm guessing he uses his boosters and Rouge uses the wings alongside him? This is just out of place. Have the flying types use this, not like they have a lot of advantages to them anyway. However, to get to the combat, I always thought a Sonic game with beat-em-up elements was a solid idea, thanks to this game actually. But again, I only played the 2-player mode, and it has been over a decade since then. And playing through it now, and other games slopping it up every time they try, I'm not convinced this can work. And at least for this game, it's all because of one thing. The levels take way too long as a result. Except for Team Rose, which have less enemies and shorter stages overall, despite the fact that they go through the exact same level in the exact same order. Well, that's not true. Since Team Rose is considered the easy mode, they get a whole tutorial level to themselves.
Hello, I'm Aldo!
Oh no, not you. Is this a punishment for ignoring you in Sonic Adventure 2? And lovely, the bastard literally interrupts you every 3 goddamn seconds. Oh, Jesus Christ, leave me alone, you insufferable boil! Team Dark is the exact opposite, making the stages much longer with more enemies to make you want to scratch the disc to an unusable state. And Team Chaotix is similar to a mission mode, which means they can do whatever the hell they want. Yeah, this sucks. I've laughed Metropolis twice and I'm still missing a single robot. I hope they never go back to this idea in the near future. So if it's not fun to go through every story, what's the point aside from experiencing the stories themselves? Well, there's a last story segment that will be unlocked after beating every story as well as collecting all the emeralds in one of the stories. Oh yeah, the special stages! So at least it's fairly simple this time. Just get a key and finish the stage without dying. For the first act though, it's only for lives. It's the second act that houses the emerald. Yeah, don't like that at all. And the special stages aren't that bad. I hear a lot of people going crazy about these. All you need to do is tap the control stick and you're good. Never mind, I stand corrected. You bamboozled me, Sonic Heroes. I'm done. Yeah, I only had the patience to play through Team Sonic, played a couple of stages with the rest, didn't even bother with the emeralds aside from 2 examples. And yeah, I won't play through the final boss with the phenomenal What I Made Of playing in the background, but I also don't have to punish myself with a 45-second cutscene, so I'll take that as a silver lining. I know a lot of people love this game, and it has a lot going for it, but the controls and repetition of it all ruins it for me. In fact, it may be the lowest point of this era, though with all that said, let us do a bit of a ranking here before I end it. So on top we gotta put Sonic Advance 2, that was the highlight for me. Then we'll put Sonic Adventure, Sonic Advance 3, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Advance, and then Sonic Heroes. Might be a controversial ranking, I don't know, but at the end of the day, this whole era was just fine. I won't say any of these games are bad, not at all. I can see how people can enjoy any of these games, despite the plethora of issues I have with them personally. From the fisting in SA1, to the unfair level design later in the other SA1, bad mech and hunting stages, annoying special ring and chow collecting, sloppy controls, and worst of all, the Chow Garden being a boring experience that I will never get into, despite what every Sonic fan says. But hey, if you love any of these games, good on ya. A lot of people grew up on them, myself included, and they hold a special place in many people's hearts, and I'm not going to take that away from you. But I'm done. I'm done with Sonic the Hedgehog for a while. These games are fine enough, but I need to play something else. Something a little more